From majorly alarming behind-the-scenes issues to ignoring fan criticism or simply failing to deliver on promises, some shows that are currently airing are riding quite precariously into the danger zone. No doubt quite a few are capable of recovering, but others may have caused irreparable harm and are already seeing some criticism and /or pushback from viewers. I'm Ewan, this is What Culture, and here are 10 TV shows that just made huge mistakes. Number 10. Spending $300 million on the first season. Citadel. Amazon's new spy thriller series Citadel is so slickly generic you couldn't be blamed for assuming the scripts were being written by an AI, because even the sex appeal of Richard Madden and Priyanka Chopra Jonas can scarcely keep this thing afloat. What's that? Look at the producers? Oh, yeah, I mean, that explains everything. Citadel, being another of the many identikit espionage streaming shows, would be absolutely fine, if not for the fact that Amazon spent an eye-watering 300 million smackaroos on the 6-episode season, making it the second most expensive season of TV ever, behind another Amazon show, Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. The Russos clearly still out there leveraging their Winter Soldier clout and making the same thing, but worse, repeatedly. The primary reason for the ballooning budget, ultimately costing more than your average MCU movie, is due to the show undergoing extensive reshoots last year after a major change in creative direction, with the series' original showrunners being replaced. The reshoots alone reportedly added $65 million to the overall production budget, but with Amazon believing that Citadel is their next big thing, and even commissioning a second season and numerous international spin-offs already, they're clearly going all in. It's fair to say that season 2 should be considerably cheaper to produce, but more Russo-produced #content for the streaming minds doesn't exactly scream sound investment. Number 9. Making the episodes too long. Ted Lasso. Now, speaking personally, I've not laced up the old Ted Lasso boots yet, and while I did feel a pang of temptation last year, the bumpy reception to the most recent series and the unrelenting niceness of it all have put me off. Does that make me a big old grump? Maybe. But, like, there's only so much sugar pie, honey fluff I can take. Peering online, it seems as if the show's charm is starting to wear off, with its attempts to tackle serious issues being criticized for being clumsily heavy-handed. There's also been chatter about the ballooning episode length. One of the primary appeals of the show's first season was that it offered a breezy, undemanding sports comedy packed into easily digestible half-hour installments. While season 2 saw numerous episodes in the 40 to 50 minute region, it seemed to justify it as it was scaling up the central drama. But from what I've read, season 3 has so far been marked by brutal storytelling and overindulgence, with 3 episodes hovering around the hour-long mark, with the season's shortest episode still being 44 minutes long. Obviously, no great episode of TV is too long, nor any bad episode short enough, but given that the 3rd season has been dinged for the saggy subplots, it's clear that the conciseness of the first 2 seasons is long gone. Number 8. Cramming multiple books into one season. Shadow and Bone. The first season of Netflix's fantasy series Shadow and Bone was largely well received by critics, fans of the novels on which it was based, and also those totally new to the IP. Sensibly, the first season adapted the first novel only, Shadow and Bone, while adding an original storyline of its own, but for season 2, the showrunners ultimately got a little too ambitious. Shadow and Bone's 8-episode second season attempted to adapt both the second and third books, Siege and Storm and Ruin and Rising, as well as elements of a later novel, Crooked Kingdom. Unsurprisingly, the primary complaint about season 2 was that the pace was too rushed, with far too many storylines being raced through, which has left fans of the novels feeling shortchanged and pure TV viewers more than a little bit confused. Given that season 2 had relatively sluggish viewing figures out of the gate, it won't be remotely shocking if Netflix cancels it any day now. Number 7. Focusing too much on the present-day plot. Yellow Jackets. Of all the shows that have been breathlessly compared to Lost over the years, Yellow Jackets actually seems to be one of the few worthy successors. A delicious, slow-burn mystery thriller series centered around a group of teenagers involved in a plane crash in 1996. Oh, Independence Day, the Spice Girls, Baby Ewan was born. Good year. Anyway, Yellow Jacket's first season received rave reviews, albeit with the caveat that constantly pinballing between 1996 and the present day sometimes caused a bit of whiplash, especially as the contemporary storyline simply lacked the same narrative drive. The unfurling mystery of what happened to the survivors immediately following the crash has been considered more interesting than the sometimes labored drama taking place with their adult versions in the present. But anyone expecting the show to change tack for season 2 may be disappointed, as the modern storylines still get more than their fair share of airtime while keeping the principal characters apart from one another for long periods of time. Number 6. Making everyone do homework and undoing every significant bit of tension. The Mandalorian. Yeah, look, right, I'm a Star Wars guy. I'm in this Dagobah swamp for the rest of my life. But anyone without that sentimentality, there is no reason to stick around and slum it in the current wave. Watch Andor. Andor is really good and actually looks like a thing that was shot by real people on sets and has the political undercurrents of Lucas's films. But Mando at this point is just content. It is there to exist, and while there was a lot of good stuff in seasons 1 and 2, the finale of the latter caused irreparable damage, delivered by the lightsaber of an ugly AI Luke Skywalker. Despite the presence of that monstrosity, and Jesus, Mando Season 2 ended on an emotional note. An unmasked Din says goodbye to little Grogu and must now start thinking about wielding the responsibility of the Darksaber and reuniting his people, with a resentful Bo-Katan waiting in the wings and a captured Moff Gideon stoking the flames. Compelling ground for the next season, I think we'd all agree. Then the book of Boba Fett came along, and the show took a brief detour to link back up with the Mandalorian and reunite him with Grogu like it was nothing. Din is also conveniently about the helmet stays on life again, which I'm sure has absolutely nothing to do with Pedro Pascal not being around to play the character. No siree. Mando Season 3 picked up from Boba, meaning that anyone who hasn't been injecting the mouse's streaming platform directly into their veins would miss a key detail of Din's journey. Then there's also the show further integrating itself into the animated series canon, which, while chill for me as a dude who likes those shows, is feeding back into that infinite loop of content consumption. They're creative decisions that feel geared to keep people on Disney Plus, rather than what's best for Din as a character. Throwing more stuff onto the Season 3 bonfire is the fact that the show undid every bit of key tension left by Season 2. Grogu and Din are separated? Not to worry, they're back. Can't leave behind our uber-profitable gremlin just like that. Moff Gideon captured? Nah, he just escaped. Bo-Katan at odds with Din for wielding the Darksaber? He can just give it back to her on a technicality, no one cares. I see, that everything is wrapped up in a neat little package. Like, no, seriously, everything is so convenient. It's really boring. Look, all of these decisions are baffling, and it doesn't help now that Andor has laid bare the filmic inadequacies of shows like Mando and Kenobi even more. Number 9. Not committing to the random episode gimmick, Kaleidoscope. Netflix's heist drama series Kaleidoscope launched at the start of the year and was largely marketed on its intriguing presentational gimmick, that each of the show's 8 color-coded episodes will be presented to subscribers in random order. The idea was basically that no two viewers would get the exact same viewing experience. An exciting idea, albeit one which would require extremely finessed writing to ensure that every possible combination of episodes still made storytelling sense. And so it perhaps wasn't terribly surprising, though still disappointing, that Kaleidoscope's apparently random episode order was in fact much less random than advertised. While it's fair enough that the final episode is fixed in place as it ties everything together, Netflix's claim that the series offered more than 5,000 possible combinations just isn't founded in reality. The gimmick was the thing that made the show so appealing, and so for it to basically be a sham is just disappointing. That it still hasn't been renewed for a second season might indicate that sentiments on a wider level. Number 4. Finishing Season 2 without writers or showrunners. Lord of the Rings of Power. The Lord of the Rings of Power's first season had its fair share of issues, but nevertheless laid a solid enough foundation for a second season to make some major improvements. Yet, the Rings of Power has run ashore with one major creative hurdle in recent days, with the current Writers Guild of America strike meaning that shooting on season 2 is being wrapped up without its writers or showrunners on set. Solidarity, by the way, writers kick ass and deserve fair and equitable treatment. Though Rings of Power's second season reportedly only had 19 days left to shoot when the strike began, and it's possible much of this material is inconsequential, it can't be discounted that there could be some majorly important scenes within that schedule which will now be completed without the input of major creatives. It will instead fall to directors and executive producers to make decisions without the show's figureheads, which could result in some important moments falling flat when the season airs next year. While the costs of shutting down production on the Rings of Power until the strike is over would surely be catastrophic, given that season 2 needs to win dubious fans back and paper over the first season's narrative cracks, this seems like a similarly risky approach, especially considering that Amazon has committed $1 billion to the show. Jesus. Number 3. Making season 1 ridiculously front-loaded, The Sandman. Netflix's hugely anticipated adaptation of Neil Gaiman's The Sandman opened to largely positive reviews, and for the show's first 6 episodes, it was easy to appreciate why. Yet there was a popular sentiment among audiences, especially those unfamiliar with Gaiman's source material, that the series fell off a cliff in its second half when the focus shifted away from Dream towards Rose Walker. The Sandman's first season adapted the first 2 volumes of Gaiman's comic series, and while there would have been sure criticism had Rose been omitted from the season entirely, the writing, direction, and acting simply didn't do her story justice. The dream-centric storytelling from the season's first half was so much more compelling that, by the time it wrapped up, audiences might have even lost interest in the show outright. Number 2. Killing Captain Shaw, Star Trek Picard. Perhaps the biggest surprise of Picard Season 3 was the introduction of a new fan-favorite character in Captain Liam Shaw, played by Todd Stashwick. Rather than become yet another bureaucratic obstacle for Picard and Riker, Shaw was an amusing foil for the duo, his dry demeanor bellying the fact he was indeed a thoroughly decent man. Shaw was quickly established as the season's breakout character, with many petitioning Paramount to commission a spin-off series centered around him, yet that all came crashing down in the show's penultimate episode. Shaw ends up sacrificing himself, being gunned down to help Picard and company escape the USS Titan. It was an affecting hero's death for sure, but one which left many genuinely infuriated, demonstrating that the showrunners vastly underestimated how popular Shaw would become. With a proposed sequel series, Star Trek Legacy, possibly in the works, fans have begged the showrunners to find a way to bring Shaw back, which either means undoing his death, or maybe more likely, the series partially taking place in the past. And number 1, releasing less than a year after Candy, Love and Death. HBO's new miniseries Love and Death stars Elizabeth Olsen as Candy Montgomery, a housewife who was accused of murdering her friend Betty Gore with an axe in 1980. Though Olsen has received strong reviews for her performance as Montgomery, the show's reception has been relatively muted otherwise, surely unaided by its biggest mistake of all, releasing less than a year after another dramatization of the story. Last May, Hulu released their own miniseries, Candy, which starred Jessica Biel in the role and received generally more favorable reviews. To anyone who watched the previous series, why would they bother with another one, especially one largely deemed to be less good so far? Clearly, there needed to be a little more breathing room between the two shows. See what 3 is? And those were 10 TV shows that just made huge mistakes. Are you watching anything that feels like it stumbled recently? Drop your thoughts down in the comments below and let us know how your fave shows are currently shaping up. If you enjoyed the video, it would be awesome if you could hit the like button, and if you want more stuff like this every day, be sure to drop us a subscribe too. That's all for now though. I've been Ewan, thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time. Bye!